So this is just how things work. So even, I mean, of course, if you think about, revolutionary movements today, and there are, there are movements that are, say, for the marginalized or for groups that, are disaffected or whatever. But those movements would not have any success if they were not ultimately driven and often paid for by very influential elite people. There's no such thing as these successful kind of populist movements that just start on their own from ground up. But those movements only have success when you have these elites that are giving them influence or money or power or whatever. This is just how these kind of things work. So specifically here, he's going to say that change in culture happens through, he's going to say, not just elites, but disaffected elites. So what do we mean by disaffected elites? Well, essentially he's going to say, if we think about culture, we've got the core group of elites. These are the most influential people upon a culture. And those elites are going to have the most say in what people do and believe and so forth. But that central circle of elites is going to be very hesitant to change. Why? Well, that's kind of obvious, because they have power, they have money, they have influence, and they're kind of happy with the way things are. So change is not going to really happen through the most powerful people. Those elites that have had their power for a long time, they're not going to just give up that power. So they're going to kind of go with the status quo, the way things are. But you also have other kind of outside elites, those who have access to positions of power, those who have influence in some significant ways, who are kind of on the outer circle of who the most elite people are. We could even think of somebody like the Apostle Paul probably fits this definition pretty well. But Martin Luther would certainly be this type, right? He has access to the most elite people in the Holy Roman Empire. He's educated, he's a professor of theology, he's got connections to the prince. But he's not this, he comes from a middle-class family, so he's not this figure who's just had power and is in power. But if you look at things like the popes, they don't want things to change. Like, why would they want anything to change? The Holy Roman Emperor, Charles V, doesn't want anything to change in the empire at the time. Why would he want things to change? The status quo works pretty well for them. So they're not going to be the ones to influence change. But it is those who are kind of on the outside circle of the elite. Now, the reason for that is, one, they're not in power like the elite are, so they actually can see the problems and can desire change, unlike those who are just kind of in it and have what they need and don't really want change. But they also have access to elite institutions. They're part of systems of influence and systems of power that average people don't have. So what Hunter is saying here is those who have the most change, who spark the most change culturally, are those who are on the outside circle of the elite, who have elite connections, but are not themselves those who are with the most power. And so change is not usually culturally a bottom-up kind of thing. And we kind of know this, right? Isn't it the case that there is an imbalance in terms of influence? You probably don't have, you could have, say, more people that are, politically active in, say, rural Nebraska, and those people will not have as strong of an impact as a few people who are very politically active in Cambridge, Massachusetts, because those people in Cambridge have a lot more impact and influence because they're connected with, again, elite institutions and publications. So they have a disproportionate influence, whereas those people in Nebraska don't have as much of an influence. Doesn't mean the people in Nebraska aren't far more right. They probably are. But the point is just that's how this cultural influence tends to work.